All right, good morning and welcome to section8consulting.com today. I was running a bit late. I had another wild cat come through the back door through our cat hole. But anyways, what I want to get onto is the future of housing authorities around America. There has been a transition of power across the nation that many of you are not aware of. I had hoped not to speak about it so soon, but that transition of power is changing very quickly, and so are the people that are taking that power. So I don't think that this is bad news. You know, we think about housing authorities and how they've operated over the past 40 or 50 years. We've looked at the success rate, training level, and the employees and management of housing authorities. And for the most part, it's an absolute failure. However, there are some housing authorities throughout America that do operate very well. It's not enough to constitute continuation of operating this way. So now, before we get deeply into this, I know there's going to be a few of you out there that are going to scream private equity. It is not private equity we're going to be talking about today. And we're talking about firms that are professionally managed. So let me take you on a short trip of history. Roughly early 2000s and a little bit before, say mid-90s, housing authorities found it difficult to not only do their job, but also even recognize that there are federal rules. So eventually, a company named Nan, N-A-N, and McKay was created by inception and did and uniformed the process as a company of how PHA should operate. Now, they have given their tutelage for many decades now. Housing authorities, many of which, about 60 or 70%, do utilize Nan and McKay's training programs for their employees and so on. It has been, Nan and McKay has been an absolute success. However, the housing authority has been an absolute failure in its ability, even with training, to operate properly. Too many scandals, right? So what we've seen, and I'm going to name a company right now, and you're going to be a little bit interested to hear the story. So I'm going to tell you guys a few good mornings real quick. I see you guys chitter-chatting away in my live chat. I'm glad to have you here this morning. It's been a tough morning. I was getting ready for this video and went to put a shot. I was in my brain thinking about this, and I put a shot of cologne directly in my eyeball. So that's how I get that's how I wake up in the morning. Just blast some cologne right in the retina, because you're somewhere in your noodle thinking. And so I've had a fantastic morning. All right. So good morning, Blaze, Ceiling Fan. Jazz, good morning. Intel Linkus, good morning. Sheila Davison, good morning. Princess and B Savage. Granny Love Squares, thank you. And looks like Mickey Monkey. I like that name. So good morning and welcome to the channel. So let's get on the fruit of the situation here. CVR Associates. CVR Associates. Take a look at that company. Let me give you a bit of background information. You'll start to understand how all this ties together. So as we look at CVR as an associate, CVR Associates refers to multiple business entities, but the one they're talking about is CVR Associates for Affordable Housing Consulting. Now, they fall in the same line that I do, except they are a management company, okay? So they were founded in 1995. CVR Associates is a management consulting firm that assists public agencies or PHAs nationwide with the administration and management of affordable housing programs, such as the Housing Choice Voucher, better known as AKA Section 8. CVR provides a wide range of services, including a bunch, and so we're not going to go through that. Point being is they're the replicant. If the housing authority is hiring off Craigslist and putting up help wanted signs at Popeye's Chickens, okay, and hiring prostitutes and the fry girl at McDonald's, then CVR Associates is directly a spinoff or an affiliation directly to Nan and McKay. Now, these are the people that are actually understand what federal rules are. They tried to help housing authorities for 40 years. It still hasn't worked. You can't seem to beat that into them. And of course, housing authorities only keep their employees roughly a month to 3 months before they either quit or sue them. So Nan and McKay has gone the extra step to create CVS Associates. Now, they, as you can see from the thumbnail of the video, they're already operating pretty strong. They're roughly, I think, at 5 to 10% of the housing authorities in America. And you know what? A lot of city governments are telling housing authorities that go through insolvency scams and everything else. That's your last. That's your last line of defense. A great example is Milwaukee Housing Authority. Milwaukee Housing Authority ran its scandal for so long, and then finally the city shut that shit down, and they turned it over to CVS Associates. Now you're talking about now dealing with people that are actually trained professionally. People, when you call them, they talk to you like a normal human, and they actually are highly efficient because that's their actual job. They're not just a monkey flying through the jungle, trying to figure shit out as they go and violate all your rights. So Nana McKay now has a subsidiary. It's CVR Associates, and they're dealing with roughly 5 to 10%, and that number's growing every day. Every time a city or a political incident happens with PHAs, a lot of cities and governments are simply closing down the housing authority and turning the whole thing over to CVS Associates, which is owned by Nana McKay, which underwrites and has full training, full comprehension, full understanding of federal rules. They also have the infrastructure and technical data in there, and they're a large operation. So they're able to do 100 times what the local PHA does when they're sitting there playing farm, building a computer, and they're unable to answer the phone. We hire a lot of disabled people that don't have fingers and hands, and they're unable to answer the phone at the housing authority. A lot of them have not even read the coloring book called rules, and so they're unable to understand how to operate even functionally as a chicken hut, much less a housing authority. So what's happening is the systematic shutdown of housing authorities around America, and it's being turned over to CVS Associates and other organizations like them. But it's not private equity. There's no going in and stealing all the money, right? So we're not hiring thieves. We're hiring people that are both proven professionals that have actual degrees. Two, they train and understand and write the very policies for most housing authorities. So they already have a deep fundamental understanding of Code of Federal Regulation, U.S. Code, civil law, as well as every other part that goes into this, which would be policies and procedures. And they don't actively violate anybody's rights. And just as a matter of running professionally rather than running a crack house and a syndicate, they don't actually talk to most people like trash. So now that's not without saying that Nana McKay and CVS Associates aren't going to have problems. Of course they are. It's a challenging job. Hell, even my office, being section8consultant.com, I deal with lots of people that carry on for days. You get them on the phone, you can clearly see they're suffering a schizophrenic moment. They become a nuisance. They'll call all day long, 91 calls a day. They'll compose emails at 6 in the morning, and they won't end until late night after they have damn near a seizure from mental health. And so they're going to face that. And I think they're facing it pretty well because they actually pay their employees. They actually already understand, are professionally trained, and they have the infrastructure and technical infrastructure in place. Not only that, but they've pretty much been the foundation of making the federal rules and writing the administrative plans for PHAs. So we're leaving the student and we're going to the actual master. And so we're guaranteed, as by virtue that the company itself has people with they didn't just get their degree at the bubblegum machine, you know what I'm saying? And then show up at the housing authority and make 6 1/4. So I'm okay with this transition. In fact, I'm hoping that Nana McKay and CVR speed this up. I would like to I wish they would start top New York and roll it all the way down. Start with all the major ones and just start shutting them down one by one. Send them home, make them sell the portfolio, the whole deal. More cities, when the cities and local government see how much money's been stolen, mismanaged, professional misconduct, and in violation of federal rights for those that participate in a federally funded program, it's my hope that CVS will be considered an option very quickly. That way, we can go ahead and dissolve the housing authority, its assets, kick out all the addicts, drunks, and crackheads that work there, and then go on and just go ahead and transition this way. I would rather have this overmanaged than not have it managed at all, because that's what we see so far. And so, on what authority do I speak? Well, as I mentioned in the prior videos, we can go to housing authorities and we can go to Google reviews, and you'll see how much displeasure there is. I would say the housing authorities rank number one in the lowest ratings you could possibly get in reviews. In fact, most of them struggle to keep a 1 star. I mean, you would have to create a negative star for most housing authorities because they operate like mafias. Just the prior year, there were 9 indicted housing authority. So indictments rolled through 9 housing authorities, over $1 billion stolen. And in many circumstances, you're talking about 10, 20 different housing authorities, which became insolvent. They literally stole all the money. Others, which are hiring people directly off Craigslist. I mean, just no credential at all. I mean, these are the same person you'd have over to clean your toilet. And now they're supposed to be a caseworker. And so, and it's a caseworker with an attitude that we're not even certain they're not suffering from mental health issues themselves because they're unable to act like grown big girls and big boys. They don't have their big girl panties on. And so they come to work, they become frustrated when they actually have to perform a function. They thought it was, let me show up, sit in a chair and look like an asshole. They don't actually want to perform or do anything. And they don't want to be bothered, so they unplug the phones. They're never open because we're still, in their mind, in their magical world, in that little warp bubble they're in, they're still suffering from pandemic. They don't want anybody breathing virus, but yet the virus is over. They still have pandemic signs. That was the greatest of all scams ever run, is the fact that housing authorities use that as a way to literally take a job and only do it 3%. Pandemic hits, now they found a way to literally never do it again. And so the dissolution of housing authorities is rather ideal for our country. In fact, I would even say that even private equity would go in and help speed it up. So we can go ahead and just end this. 40 years of failure is symptomatic. As I had mentioned for 2026, do not be surprised. Now, President Trump has already addressed HUD. He sold their building, fired 90% of them. He's going in and said project-based housing run by the housing, owned and run by the housing authority, is filled with criminals for the most part. 10% of them got tricked into going there and they're suffering this property. Now he's having to send 5 separate federal agencies to raid project-based housing that is managed by the PHA syndicate. And so do not be surprised as 2026. Not only do we look at the dissolution of housing authority, but we look at this administration investigating probably most of them, top 100 housing authorities. Because if he's going to take that kind of action as a president across the board, I don't think he's going to leave housing authorities on the table. So a lot of cities around America are going to have to make a decision. And that will be to dissolve assets, kick them out your city, and turn all this shit over to Nana McKay and CVR Associates and other companies that are privately run by people that actually went to college, that actually understand what they're doing. Not just failures that just barely got a certificate to be a caseworker and have now decided to delight themselves in the housing authority. Because I can tell you, if you went to college, became a caseworker, and you were in the housing authority, you fucked your life up, honey. Okay? That's the low end of the deal. You fucked your life up. And now that just proves itself. So we don't need trashy caseworkers anymore. What we need is private companies stepping in, managing this with both technology and respect. Now, they're going to mess up. I'm sure of it. There's no way to manage this perfectly. But I would rather see this whole thing professionally managed, even with partially AI or AGI, by a private company that don't take no shit and actually does the books, does the work. We know, we've confirmed they've actually been somewhere other than Vacation Bible School for their education and are able to actually perform the job every day of the week. And that's something that the very company that's written policies across the nation for many of our housing authorities through Nana McKay and their subsidiary, that company we're talking about, CBS, would be an ideal situation. The quicker we can dissolve all these housing authorities, the better everybody's going to be. And so Nana McKay, CVR Associates have my vote all the way. Even if they have fucked up on some cases, they have my complete vote. Because you know what? It'd be better to have a CVR run this and make 10% mistakes than have the housing authority make 150% of the mistakes. I'd rather have 100 people have their rights violated than almost everybody. Okay. And then we are actually able, These are highly capable individuals that do understand federal law. They don't actually lie to you and pretend that they're going to rewrite federal rules. A lot of housing authorities do a magnificent job of harassment, retaliation. They're even unaware of their own policies and procedures, and they on a constant violate people's amendments. And so when you deal with a company like Nana McKay and their subsidiary, it means they're fully trained in that. So they're not going to act like a prostitute on 3rd Street that just got their first check at the housing authority. So I'm quite pleased with this. If anybody disagrees and would like the housing authority in your city to continue to do what they're doing, please raise a hand. Please tell me in the channel. I like being abused. I like being a victim of the housing authority. I like being shoved in project-based housing run by the housing authority that allows every other apartment to be a drug dealing unit. We're selling crack out A1. We have tricked an old lady into unit number 2. Unit number 3, Bob's turning tricks by the pool. Bob's turning tricks there at the pool. And so what do we want? Do we want a professional company, or do we want circus clowns running this? That's my emotion here. And though I will give one concession, my concession is there are housing authorities throughout the Midwest where people still somewhat act normally. And so you've got little old ladies and so on that run those housing authorities. Look, they're doing the best they can, and those are good people. But a lot of what we see up the West Coast, the East Coast, the Southern states, and portions, certain large volume states throughout the upper Midwest, they've all failed at this. And so nothing seems more ideal. I would rather this be managed that way. I mean, because they literally wrote the book on it. You know, a lot like I've written a lot of the book that I've operated by over 26 years. Part of what makes me effective is I've had to battle the housing authority. I would love better than nothing than to retire and not have to worry about housing authorities anymore, because it's a guarantee that the company that writes the foundation goes to Congress and lobbies and understands those federal rules are the ones that are going to administer them much better than hiring people, like I said, just they barely got through 2nd grade. They went down to the Kroger's store and they put a quarter in there. They got their certificate to be a caseworker. Now that person with schizophrenia has been given a phone and responsibility over 800 people. She cannot add 1 + 1. Okay. We're selling vouchers out the back door. The doorbell don't work. They never open. They don't answer the phone. And every email is a threat. Does anybody agree that that is pretty much your rep? That is the way that you deal with your housing authority, is under the constant threat of being victimized? Is anybody pleased and want to do prayer circles and hand out gold awards? Should we do Academy Awards for our heroes at the housing authority that it complete and complicit been able to indenture everybody? They have run the largest drug. The reason I refer to them as a syndicate and a mob, well, when you own a property and you allow 51 crack dealers in there, then what exactly are you? You're managing a drug dealer. That's what you're doing. And so for a United States president to literally raid the housing authority's own properties across the nation with 5 federal agencies tell us exactly where we are with the housing authority. They're drug dealers, they're thieves, they're liars, and they violate your 4th Amendment rights every day. They either deny or don't even follow Code of Federal Regulation. They will deny the very existence of that on the books. And by virtue and by years in the business, I've seen hundreds of these housing authorities get sued. The good people that actually do apply to work at housing authority don't last because they quickly see it's run just like the mob. So if you don't agree with the office politics to actively victimize and completely screw people over every day, then you have two options, morally and ethically. You can keep the job and be complicit with a bunch of thieves and liars, or you can quit your job and just feel sad that you just witnessed one of the biggest frauds in America in terms of housing, is the fact that housing authorities do not in any way, and their employees, give a shit whether or not and have any sympathy for anybody, except for very few. And let me make that clear again. There are housing authorities that run a tight ship, and they are excellent workers there, and they are highly skilled, but that's not most of them. And that's who we're talking about today. So, CVR Associates, in my opinion, I love to see this accelerated back quickly. Every time they levy indictments through HUD against a PHA, they should be forced in to pretty much dissolve the assets of the housing authority and then have it turned over to Nana McKay and CVR Associates so they can take care of business. Yeah, it's going to be a rough ride the first year while they figure out how much money's been stolen, how everything's been mismanaged. But once they get it on track, it'll operate like any good company does. It'll likely be profitable. People will actually get their questions answered. And people like me, I'll be out of a job, but that's okay. I'm retiring anyway. So good luck, future consultants. There may not be much to consult on, because if you go to the very people that write and underwrite policy procedure at the federal level and lobby for it, then you can assure yourself they're well trained. Okay, a whole different category. Okay, running those, and so that's where we are today. So Milwaukee, we're talking about that housing authority. Well, they mismanaged it so bad, they were on the verge of federal indictments. And so there was no choice. The city literally had to turn over its own housing authority, and CVR Associates took it over. They're struggling their first year. Not everybody got pristine service, but look, there are going to be hiccups. And then one thing I can tell you as a consultant, no matter if you're them or my office, it's not going to be perfect. We deal with a lot of people that are imperfect that can make your life a living hell. I've had a few clients. I had one recently. Though this person's drowning, they chose to try to dictate how and when I did my job and different things. And I told them to hit the road, because how am I extending a lifeboat to you? Okay. And then you're going to sit there and talk shit to my face? No, I don't think so. I'm not Amazon. You're not going to talk to me like trash. When you start that shit, I'll let your ass drown. And so certainly CVR Associates is going to deal with the same thing. You're always going to get a handful, okay, a certain percentage of people that still don't get it, and that's the reason. That's the whole reason they're in housing, is because a whole life is filled with bad choices. And when people like me or these other places try to save their ass, they continue to drown and run their mouth. Difference is, I'm not like them. I don't have to have the same level of professional conduct. So I'll tell a person to hit the fucking road. Okay. Let me be honest. I'm not going to put shit up. I'll treat you just like a child. You start that, or I'll kill the case. Now, CVR may not have that option, but I'm pretty sure they're not going to put up a tone and attitude. So my advice for all people involved is, if CVR Associates is taking over your housing authority, give them a fair chance, treat them with dignity, treat them with respect if you can. And I'm pretty sure they'll reciprocate that. Okay. This is not a Mickey Mouse operation. It is a subsidiary of the largest underwritten company for PHAs in the country. They're well aware of rights, and they're not going to play games. So if you're a game player and you're a person who likes to stir shit up, you're going to have a hard time with them, because they operate ethically, as far as I know. And I did look up their background all the way from A to Z. I can find very little on it. I see they do struggle their first year, but who wouldn't? If you took over a complete disaster where the housing authority is trying to hide every transaction, no record keeping, and hiring people that are just short of a meth head working there, then they have a lot on their plate. And so that's a lot they have to unwind before they can actually make the car run so they can drive it. They're taking over something that's been tore up. So it's not going to be perfect. So people need to have reasonable expectation when your housing gets taken over. And as we progress to 2030, I imagine more than half the housing authorities in America will be taken over at this point, because everybody's had it. Everybody's had it. It's a complete failure altogether. And the larger housing authorities are falling like dominoes. They've been look, New York, the president set a very clear example with New York. He went up to the biggest housing authority in America. Okay, 60 people walked out in handcuffs. Nobody's playing right now. That's to let every PHA in the country, public housing authority, and put them on notice. New York went down. Do not think that you somehow, or you can operate with impunity. There'll be no more of that. If you try to act with impunity and run shit like it's the Wild West, as you have in the past as a PHA, and not even fill out paperwork and violate people's rights, you'll find yourself in handcuffs with a court date and a federal indictment. Furthermore, they'll dissolve your housing authority, sell your assets, and turn it over to people that actually do have an education and understand what federal rules are. Okay, that will treat people with some dignity and respect. And again, as I said before, I don't believe this is a circumstance where there's any ill will. I mean, the company's just trying, CVR and Nana McKay have witnessed this madness. And I think another thing is we need We need to nationalize part of the system. In other words, there's too much. One of the big things I struggled with all these years as a Section 8 consultant or consulting at the federal level is every housing authority is allowed too much latitude in operating in a local community. In other words, administrative plans, rules, and policies are different at 4,400. It creates chaos. So I don't think that we need to nationalize the system. We need to privatize it, okay? Where there's a vested interest in educating people working there with actual technology to actually make this and function properly. And we need to come to modern times. Why are we even housing authorities dealing with paper application? Are you fucking kidding me? It's 2025. If grandma's still printing out paper applications, playing that game, it means they don't even want to run it means they're not even ready. I'm surprised they probably don't even have a computer in the building. And so this is the problem we need to solve. We need to modernize the system. And by doing that and even adding AI and private company into this, yeah, it's more private, but I'd rather them be profitable off of this than to have it run the way that it is now. So you can be treated like trash and never get a voucher, option A, your local housing authority, right? Or you can have a private company, it's going to take a lion's share of money out of it, but you get treated with respect. The whole system will be modernized and they'll speed it up. And whenever you call, they'll actually answer your questions without an attitude. Unless you call them 91 times a day, then you might get flagged. So that's where we are. And so roughly 5 to 10% of the housing authorities have now been taken over. I expect that number to increase by 50% through 2026. And by 2028, I would expect that they could approach 60 to 70%, which means a lot of these housing authorities, after a government shutdown, after defunding and half funding, a lot of them are at a breaking point. Many of them don't even have a cash reserve to run an additional month. All goes to mismanagement, professional misconduct, and what do we think about the money? Where did it go? How did you operate the housing authority for 40 years and you only have an operable budget saved in 1 month? And so these things are just dying. They're just a dying breed. It's a dying breed. I would compare the service to it like a really, really bad McDonald's, right? Where everybody goes and gets their order, but they're angry and pissed off. Nobody gets what they order, right? And so the days of the housing authorities are rather limited. I would expect that the vast majority of PHAs by 2030 will likely be taken over by private companies and run most likely through CVR and other private non-equity companies that will be able to modernize this, and then you'll be able to get through the system much quicker. You'll be able to get your questions answered, and people will sympathize with your circumstance. Why? Because they're paid appropriately, number one. Number two, they're held to professional conduct, something the housing authorities usually don't train at all for. They hire former prison guards to work there, basically. And so everybody is a hooker and a bitch when they get on the phone. If I'm lying about that, the extreme nature and the way that I'm framing that up, if you find that to be untrue, then you haven't visited most of the housing authorities in America. Okay? If you could even get them on the phone these days. So that's my hope. So let me jump into live chat here. I'm sure there's a lot to be said. I'm pretty sure there are a few housing authority employees. I have them in every video. I've had directors of housing authorities jump in videos. When I looked at my analytics for my channel, doing this 15 years, on any given year, I have over 60 .govs that watch this channel. That is state governments from virtually every state and even at the federal level. So don't think they don't listen to what I say. I have been a very big advocate and an authority on the subject matter so damn long that whenever I do make videos, despite sometimes my profanities and lack of professionalism in terms of conversation, I'm right about a lot of things. I'm more right than I am wrong. You don't do this for 25 plus years and not be right. Difference is I had a different level of realism. I'm not here to please anybody. I'm not here to do my hair, lipstick, and nails so I can come and talk to you monotone like I work at Eyewitness News. What I'm here to do is deliver what is reality and what's the truth. If you've not grown up enough to understand that, digest that information, and then carry on, then you're a bigger fool than I thought. Okay, so what we need is the truth. You want to go to another channel, they'll sugarcoat shit and give you 3 easy tips and tricks on how your ass can get a voucher, and they'll mess your life up, okay? Because those people, all these other people on YouTube are not consultants. They're entertainers. They're the same thing as when you have a child, a 6-year-old girl, and you hire a party clown to come to your yard and do the party clown thing. That's what these other people are doing. They have no fundamental understanding of policy, procedure, rights, legislation, any of it. But yet they've given you the greatest portion of advice. As long as you keep feeding their YouTube channel nickels and pennies for ad revenue, which I don't care about. I don't make, look, for what I make on YouTube, it would pay the cat food bill that I have. That's it. So be careful where you get your advice. There is snake oil and charlatans for miles. These guys, a lot have been copying me. I've got one lady, she only knows how to copy everything I do. She hasn't had original fucking thought since the day she was born. She ain't the only one. I've got hundreds of them to do it because they don't have any original thoughts. They don't put any effort in this. They haven't been to school for anything. They've never fought for anybody's rights. You'll never hear them cry about the veterans, seniors, anybody. Their only vested interest is lining their little party clown wallet with nickels and dimes for making charlatan videos. That's what YouTube's filled with, charlatans. Okay? A lot of them. But it's no longer my business. I retired at the end of the month, and that's it. Oh, we have a guest. This would be one of our other office managers. Say hello to Mr. Pops. He just finished a nap in the broom closet, so he says he's going to go ahead and clock in. Hello, Pop. The people like to know what you think of today's conversation. He quite agrees with me. I only hire agreeable cats. So he says that we need the PHA must support greater housing for cats in America. And he probably wants some treats. So, early in the morning, one thing I've learned through the holidays, you got 2 sets of people you need to love a lot. The holidays ain't about Santa Claus, man. It's about your friends, family, and your pets. Don't forget your pets. And my old philosophy goes as this. At the end of the day, there's one thing that'll always love you, that won't judge you, and doesn't care about everything else. And that'll be these little animals here. They have complete faith in you. They'll love you, but we give them so little. Many of you think pets are something you can purchase at a dollar store, and that your only responsibility is put some food and water in a bowl, and that be the end of the deal. When they're inconvenient, you move them, kick them out. I'm going to tell you, these animals are more loyal than your own fucking family. So that's why I do it. But I'm not here to lecture people on pet care. Today we're discussing, the care and well-being of humans. But it's funny, there is a parallel between that cat and its treatment and many of you in that housing authority. What I'm saying here is it'd be best for this nation as a whole nation to have this professionally run by anybody but the housing authority. Otherwise, you won't even get treated as good as a cat. Okay? Any given week, right now I'm in the middle of 4 different court cases for clients. 4 court cases, because I have individuals that are operating so far outside of federal rules and violating people's rights so badly that they would have probably been better getting raped on the sidewalk than dealing with that housing authority. Okay? These housing authorities are filled with people that are highly problematic. So whether or not I agree or disagree with who's elected in offices, I can tell you this. Nothing would give me greater pleasure than the president investigating, and I believe that he will next year start investigating storming housing authorities, demanding records, and then start shutting the shit down. And 2, nothing would give me even greater pleasure than that, than to have Nana McKay, the very company that has made a long-standing reputation within the Section 8 community, professionally own and operate PHAs throughout the country, because I know they're trained well. Their intent is goodwill. It's not bad. But many of you will argue, some of you probably have had dealings, and sometimes it didn't go right. Well, I'm not looking for a flawless reputation. What I'm looking for is overwhelming good of Nana McKay and CVR Associates to do the overwhelming good of this. And even if it comes with a 10% deficit of mistreatment, It's still a much better record operating locally and handling people's housing than to have people that operate a housing authority with absolute impunity. So I made my argument. So let's go back in the comments here, and so I can say good morning. I'm gonna scroll back, so be patient. If I don't see your comments, nothing personal. I don't wake up in the morning, have a cup of coffee, go, you know what? When I see a person hop my channel, if they ask more than one question, I'm gonna pretend like I don't see it. Look, first of all, I don't really see that well. I should probably be wearing glasses. Number two, YouTube it only makes live chat for people that are young that can see it well. When you get over 50, it's hard to see these chat comments. And many of you will sit there and go, "Why'd you skip my comment?" Well, there's a difference. You're watching me on your TV, your 100-inch TV. So the letters are 4 inches big for you, right? Oh, well, I can see my comment. Well, they're not that big for me. I don't have a 100-inch TV, okay? So anyways, moving on. Black Crow, good morning. Sherry Savage, good morning again. Paul Wagner, good morning and welcome to the channel. Services, good morning to everybody with Skokie Land. Waiting. We do lots of that. Have you been to the local housing authority? I can tell you what their motto is: waiting. That's what they do. We pay the housing authorities to do nothing but help people wait. That's it. It's like it's an infinite DMV. You go in, you pop a ticket, and you never get served. Paul Wagner, how is San Diego doing? Are they also running out of money? They're having their troubles, of course. They're definitely having their troubles, but a lot of PHAs right now are still reeling from the government shutdown. They're struggling. They just got November, and a lot of them are struggling to even come up with December. Remember, a 43-day government shutdown is a testing ground to see which housing authorities were a good steward of federal dollars, because a lot of them didn't even have a cash reserve. In other words, they're at the brink of failure. A lot of housing authorities are at the brink of failure and having to operate for nearly a month and a half with no money, burned all their reserves for many of them. So they're cash dependent. The problem is the president is not intending on increasing funding. He's actually deducted funding by half. So they're not even able to recover this. So there will be many housing authorities around the nation, big and small, that will fail going into 2026, or they'll have to sell off their project-based drug dealing properties to pay the bill. You know, we have allowed housing authorities to accept federal dollars, and they buy up everything in town. So that portfolio is equity owned by the housing authority. They're using federal dollars to buy a bunch of businesses for themselves. And even though they have all these properties, they're still renting the drug dealer and the prostitute, right? They own the properties in equity, so they got giant portfolio. So there's money everywhere, but we're still paying 6.25. We're still hiring Bob at the pool turning tricks. He's now the director of the housing authority. Then you got Nancy. Nancy, she just got off meth last week. She got hired at the McDonald's drive-through window. Now she works there till noon as the fry girl, and now she's your caseworker. Don't be surprised when you find that many of the housing authorities many of the employees don't even have a formal education. Okay? Not that that's extremely important in terms of human beings, but there is a connection between ignorance and acting a fool. Anybody want to agree with that? Ignorance and acting a fool. What happens when you combine those two with 6.25 and then stick them in the housing authority? What you have is a demon with a phone that's ready to terrorize people. That's your local housing authority. You'd be better getting housing at the county jail and being beat up by a prison guard than you would be dealing with a housing authority employee. Look, their whole job is plausible deniability, infinite waiting list, and never actually producing anything for the government. The federal government has been pouring billions of dollars into housing authorities for over 40 years. And what do they have to show for it? Well, the housing authority's got a big old pocket full of properties, right? It owns lots of equity, millions in equity, but it can't seem to produce any result. Nobody really gets housing. We give out 30,000 vouchers. Half of them can't be used. The other half are worthless because they're not enough money. So it's just an operating scam that keeps going. Just one giant pyramid scam, and nobody seems to know how to shut it down. So that's why I'm excited and very pleased to announce private companies taking this over. Yeah, it comes with its perils, sure. But shit, man, when you do something so bad, the most poorly run thing in the nation outside of the post office, okay, I can tell you, I would rather have even private equity in this than the housing authority run it. And so the quicker the demise, the better. Okay. Hell, I've got people that are low income be willing to chip in $10 or $20 a month and pay a subscription just to not be talked to like shit on the phone and actually get their questions answered at the housing authority. Some people would literally just pay for it because you just for once pick up the phone, answer an email, and talk to me with a little bit of fucking dignity. People would actually probably pay for that. But no, not the housing authority. It's too busy using federal dollars to buy up every crack house so it has a big portfolio of money, right? And then do nothing for people. That's your local hero right there. That is the finest you can do. So only people that really do well with this are those that have subsidies that are privately owned. So we've seen private landlords, Section 811, Section 202, they do a much better job. So imagine we just go ahead and bridge the gap. Why don't we get rid of the housing authority and then just have private companies and private landlords? That's where the game changes. Because then we return to a level of dignity where things actually get done and people respectfully follow rules. Moving on from there, it's funny. Every time I talk about housing authorities, it brings up, I almost suffer from a mental illness with it. When I hear the words housing authority, I start to want to gag. It upsets me. Sometimes I go out and want to get in my car and almost want to kill people on the road. I get myself wound up because I've watched tens of thousands of people get abused and victimized by housing authorities. Where it was their very job to accept money from the government, but they act like they're pulling out their own purse. You think Bob there, you think he was pulling that money out of his own wallet as if he was a guardian of his own money, and the lies being told. I mean, I can show you all hundreds of thousands of pages of lies. I just reviewed a case where a caseworker did nothing but lie. And I had to tell the clients to look, I don't think this is personal. You may feel she's harassing you, but that's just how ignorant she is. If you go down and you drive down to local elementary school and you talk to a third grader, then have a conversation with her, you'll find that's about where that caseworker's intellect is right now. So you're not going to get a real answer from them. I'm not suggesting everybody's ignorant to the housing authority, but I haven't seen any evidence to prove otherwise. All right. Happy goes on. Good morning, Jay and Katz, everyone. How is Arizona doing? Arizona's struggling. Arizona got invaded by California during the pandemic, so it's tight market. Oh, we got another key. So why don't we do a few more cat introductions since I got a captive audience, right? Hey, look, mix up clear about the channel. My cats are a big part of what I do. If you don't like it, then unsubscribe, fuck off, okay? I own this channel. I'm going to talk about what I want, and how I'm going to do it, okay? Nobody's going to dictate what I do in my videos. If you don't like it, you can leave. I'm telling you, Bob and Nancy are running the Fidget Spinner channel. Tomorrow, they're going to make Section 8 videos on how to buy a Coca-Cola and a pizza and bribe the housing authority, that kind of ignorance. Go over to Ignorant Ass channel where they're not a consultant, don't understand nothing, and they'll sit there and whisper all the sweet shit you want in your ear. Otherwise, this channel is about me, and when the cats are around, it's about that, So anyways, many of you have been asked about Diamond, our newest cat rescue. There's Pops. He's taking a snoozing. Oh, there's little mama. She's up there taking a munch. And there's Diamond. She's got a food bowl right there. So she's laying down. So everybody, see, that's the same thing you're going to see. If I walked in the housing authority, what do you think you would see if we took a camera in there? People sleeping at the office. So the housing, they're operating like cats. They check in when they want. They're having siestas in the middle of the day. Might as well go ahead. If y'all would bring the housing authority treats out there, you could incentivize this because it really is comparable with cats. They do what they want when they want. That's, same mentality as a cat, except the difference is at least the cat's lovable. I'm not going to pet the caseworker. Okay. I'm not going to feed into supporting, or otherwise incentivizing the local nut at the housing authority. Well, man, I'm telling you, it's a tough subject for me today. Anton 777, Lake Stevens, Washington, getting ready to be evicted. Sorry to hear that. If you're having struggles, reach out to my office. You can also reach out to the Legal Aid Society for Washington area. I know if you guys look at our channel, you'll see we did a speaker event for the Legal Aid Society, and I spoke before a large number of attorneys. Believe it or not, I'm going to tell you something about attorneys, law firms, and ESQs. We get a lot of calls from them. Attorneys tend to practice laws where they find it favorable to the client's pocket. In other words, you study the laws that people, when people have money. You don't go and study Section 8 and Title 24. Why? Because you know your client's on a fixed income. That's why a lot of you guys end up calling me as a consultant, and we end up doing those cases, working with you to do cases, because you know who's got $300 to $400 an hour, and most attorneys won't even touch a Section 8 case unless you're being evicted, and even then they won't touch it unless you go to the Legal Aid Society. In fact, I would go as far to say I can count on one hand how many attorneys in the country will do anything related to anything Section 8 or housing in the nation. People ask, well, can you refer me? Look, it's a rare breed, just like me. 20 years ago, there were lots of consultants. Look, there's only a handful of me left. You can Google it all day. You won't find many. And for a lot of reasons. Part of it's stressful job. 2, it doesn't pay very well. 3, sometimes your clients are crazy or they don't have a lot of money. So if you do this job, you have to do it because you care. If you do it for 25 years, it probably means you care a whole lot about humans. But don't mistake the care with, I'm going to put up with a lot of shit either. I get lots of people that are really bizarre, do things that are just way out there, and we have to end it early. So, we got a visitor, little mama. Let me go. She's a little moody today. Let me go. So, looks like my kikis are calling on me, so we're going to probably wrap this up pretty shortly. Normally, when they start protesting and hanging around the video like this, it means it's Sunday. Damn it, they want petting, they want treats, and they want me. So they're indicating that I've been carrying on too long in this video. So unfortunately, if I have a choice between my cats and the YouTube channel, I'll probably go ahead and deal with my cats. So, well, look, guys, I didn't get to some comments, but I think we're just here for the news today. There's not a lot of problems going to be solved for this type of video. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up from here. Looks like little mama's going to go to sleep. She's a heavy girl, too. She likes her buffet. We keep 4 or 5 different types of cat food in the house because we have a lot of finicky eaters. All right, mama. You ready? There you go, girl. So let's see if I can answer a few more comments before I go. Many seniors will be homeless. Okay, when you make a comment like that, could you elaborate so we understand why you're making that comment? Because I don't know. That's the person that said that is Happy K5. Antone, 777 seniors are target number 1. I'm not understanding context. Savage, Trump's going to put a stop to that stuff. Well, he already has, but I think that there's more to do, and I think that he's doing that. Granny loves squares. Interesting name. I'm afraid we're going to be made homeless while they fix this mess. Well, it's important we not deal with fear until we have an actual legitimate reason to have it. I mean, a lot of people, you're artificially pumping yourself up before things have even happened. So I would warn that let's just get to 2026. Look, we have to deal with things as they come. We can't speculate. When you speculate, then that's when you're going to lose sleep at night because you're guessing whether things are going to go right or not. So we just have to see what happens. There's always a need for license plates. I don't understand why you throw that in there in the gumbo pot while we're talking about license plates. Turn on your closed captions, please. They're always on. YouTube determines whether or not they run, okay? I've had that on for 15 years, so. It seems like Section 8 housing is an open-air prison. It can be. There's nothing like seeing Bob in a pair of Daisy Dukes on 3rd Street popping tricks at the projects, okay? So, hey, it is what it is. We don't need to sugarcoat that. Joseph, good morning and welcome to the channel. Deborah received an answer, unknown address, had me reach out for rent. Rent help said to be great resources when I never missed a payment. I don't know why. Rob, when do you foresee it loosening up? I'm your expert opinion. Well, I see things loosening up and getting easier starting in January. We have a new federal budget, right? Number two, there has been reversals in terms of funding levels for 2026. And I'm seeing a persistent number of changes throughout the system would indicate that we're finally maybe coming to a better operational point from Section 8 housing. We've been through a couple of tough years, right? 2025 has been the most difficult one for Section 8 and housing altogether. So I'm hoping that we see some reprieve. Sherry, Savage, or am I misunderstanding? So I missed too many comments while I was popping my lips in the channel. Okay. And Antonell, the hillbilly hermit, you mean in spite of your profanities? Well, that too, because I'm like the king and the queen. If I'm the king of the country, or if I want to pardon somebody, I'll just simply do it. I don't need anybody's permission. Okay. If you guys are worried about me, you think I'm worried about being politically correct or socially acceptable, I don't give a shit about that, okay? And most of you understand that as you get older, I don't care what's socially acceptable. I'm going to do precisely what I mean to do, and I don't care. I don't care about votes, gold stars, none of that. I'm going to do precisely what I mean to do. That's the difference between a man and a grown woman and an idiot, okay? I'm going to do precisely what I mean to do and say what I mean. All right, moving on from that. They aren't showing that they can transition people poorly. They're behaving like they're putting a hatchet to the program. Well, some things have to be cut. I mean, that's the virtue of running the government. You either up the budget or you cut the budget, right? No Daisy Dukes left on my lap. Oh, that's from my time era. Probably a few of you know what Daisy Dukes are. But if Bob is wearing them, don't go to the fucking pool, okay? If you do, you better bring your loose change. Otherwise, Bob ain't going to leave you alone. That's the projects, okay? Let me tell you what the projects are. Projects can be two different things. They can be the projects, okay, whether it's a trailer park or if it's in the hood. Everybody's got it, okay? Nobody wants to see Bob out there in Daisy Dukes. Serious. Be careful, because you might get yourself in trouble, all right? Carolina, an attempt on permanent supportive housing was telling, throwing people out without infrastructure that is true, okay? So sometimes people make big decisions, but, the only way our country's at a phase in time in life where we've been operating this thing for 300 years, and for most of its existence, this country is going pretty softly along the line, okay? Where we make slow and calculated choices, and much of the shit hasn't worked out, right? So while it may be a shock to everybody to have a president in office, decides to make sweeping changes, go after every federal agency and reduce funds, it's supposed to be shocking. That did create an unfortunate circumstance. And so people retaliated in every state and filed lawsuits. But that was for Scott Turner at HUD. Now they reversed course. They're going to look at it. That's proving ground. It's a testing ground right now. We're testing a lot of things. We're testing immigration. We're testing Section 8 housing and all the other agencies. So there's no good way to do this. At least they have retracted. Okay, so they're not saying they're acting with impunity, because they wouldn't have retracted it just a few days back and said, hey, we're going to reconsider and we're going to do a NOPO for now. And so at least they're not beyond reproach. That's when you need to be in trouble. When presidents become beyond reproach, then we're in trouble. I don't think that's the case here. A big move was made and a lot of people were upset about it. 5,000 more lawsuits were filed. The administration heard it clearly. They retracted. Now they're going to bring something different to the table, probably this summer. Okay, I'd say that's like acting like a grown man doing that. You went big. It was too much. People sounded the alarm. You like Cracker Barrel? I hear there was a fucking riot at Cracker Barrel over a sign. People make mistakes. That's how it goes. I've never known any president, whether Republican or Democrat, to have a complete good record. This president, his style is making big changes. And sometimes it's too much, and then the people cry about it and sue about it, and changes happen. And so that's a good system. He's not beyond reproach. Okay, so if people don't care for this style of presidency, you get your second shot, another 3 years. I'm not here to judge either way. As a consultant at the federal level, look, I'm not into politics. I just talk about it. Okay, I haven't voted for anybody. When I retire, I'll become a voter. After all these years, I don't want a conflict of interest. I don't want to get on phones with clients, and the first thing on my client casework manual says, "Hey, are you a Democrat or Republican? If you happen to be this party, then please hang up and dial 911. We ain't doing a fucking thing for you." I don't do that. I'll serve everybody, and I don't put a checkbox to figure out where you are politically. I'm pretty sure when you die that if there's a God or even Buddha up there, he's not going to have a box saying, "Are you Republican? Please check Republican or Democrat." And if you're this party, you go to hell. And if you're the other party, you come on upstairs. It doesn't work that way. Okay, so I don't want to argue politics here. It's not what this channel's about. I just talk about the politics that surround, that seem to affect Section 8. So let my catch. Do you think when I picked up Diamond at the gas station, my newest cat, wouldn't that be a real piece of shit? Excuse me, Kiki. I would like to rescue you, but first you should identify. Are you Republican or are you Democrat? Because if you're this party, I'm going to leave your fucking ass at the gas station. You see how incredibly stupid this is? The only thing on this planet that gives a shit about your political party is you. That's it. The cat don't care. God don't care. So my advice to all of you political geniuses out here is simply this. Worry about your own. Don't worry about what other people do. If the president's in there doing what he's going to do it anyways. Okay? He don't need your fucking permission. Just like the last one, didn't need your permission. Okay? It's simple as that. Same thing with Congress and the House. They don't need your permission, and your one little vote don't mean shit. Okay? It ain't going to change nothing. This is the hand we're dealt. We deal with it. For better or worse. Okay, guys? So stop with all that. Okay? As far as I can tell, every president we've had the last 20 years, at least half their agenda is pretty decent, and the other half's kind of shitty. I've never known any of them to have a complete record. So I'll take what I can get. I'm not pleased with everything President Trump does either, and neither was I with Biden. I'll take whatever we can get, especially in Section 8. If the man wants to go in and investigate Section 8 and housing and make cuts based on the fact that half the people have a voucher or complete fraud, then I'm all for it. And I'm a consultant. My job literally is to be against shit like that. But see, I don't make decisions on my politics. I make decisions based on reality. You see the difference? That's the difference between me and the average public. I make decisions on consensus, not whether or not it meets my political agenda. If I did it that way, then everybody would be suffering. So anyways, y'all got me on a wild tear again. I hate that when that goes down. Laughing out loud, not to be allowed to vote until retirement. There you go. Well, it's the best. It's best to be impartial. And I struggle with being impartial. For every president we've ever had, I struggle with it. Because I'll hate literally half of what they do and the other half I like. And my only job really is to worry about whether or not it's going to affect my job. So I'm extremely prejudicial in that behavior. I'm looking, okay, this guy's going to save the planet or he's going to ruin it. But I don't care about that. I just care how much shit how much more difficult you'll make my office. How much more work you're going to give me. If you do too much, you're going to make me work too hard. If you don't give enough money, then I might have a lot more work. So yeah, I'm like everybody else. my issue and my focus on singular issues. I'm always looking at it, man. And President Trump's giving me a lot of work, okay? And so it's the way it goes. But when the dust clears, nobody's going to like big changes. That's the life. No human likes change anyways that much. We're seeing a lot of them. Eventually, this will all be forgotten. Most of the system will be changed. A lot of people that managed to sit on housing vouchers with no need are going to be kicked out. People that shouldn't be legally in the country are going to be leaving, and they'll be out of the housing that you can't rent. They'll be forfeiting vouchers that they should have never had in the first place. So whether that's a 1% problem or 30% of the problem, anything we can get to reduce the impact on housing, to get it to seniors, veterans, and disabled, I'm all for it, even if it's brutal. Okay? Things will calm down, guys. Eventually, we'll get used to these big changes. And eventually, the people that should have this will have it, and those that don't will be kicked out. That's the ultimate goal here, not to figure out whether or not it feels pleasant. Presidents don't deal in how you feel. President Trump and also President Biden. And they're not here to please people. They're here to do a fucking job. This guy's a businessman. His decisions are based on business. That means it's going to offend half of everybody anyways. Okay, that's the way it goes. Okay, he's not an Amazon representative. He doesn't need anybody to pet him or be pleased with him. He's simply here to do a job. He's doing it, whether you like it or not. Just like Biden does. Okay, he did what he did. He even pardoned his own kid. I thought that was kind of crazy. And I like Biden a little bit. I like part of his agenda, but he was definitely not the most notable. I liked Obama. He was charismatic, but a lot of his agenda was kind of didn't serve great purposes either. So I got a problem with every president ever lived, except probably Ronald Reagan. But I just liked him because he played in the Western video. I didn't really care about his politics. As far as I could tell, he's just a good old boy. So, moving on down, Caroline, I'm supposed to be killing this video here, but we carried on a bit further. Thank you for the videos, sticking to the facts, not playing games. Thank you. Antonell, this is life and death. Of course it is. Every day is life and death. Man, you can pull out your car today. You watch this video, pull out your car, and a car hits you and you die, okay? So everything's life and death. Maybe you had one too many pieces of chicken at Popeye's chicken, and you put that breast in your mouth or that wing in your mouth, and guess what? You stroke out on the couch, and now your fat ass is dead. Everything's life and death. You're dying the minute that you're born. Hell, if you die, if you do die, you're doing so much better than you're ever going to get it here, okay? I'm pretty sure God and Buddha will offer housing, much better housing, and there'll be no waiting list, okay? Even the devil's offered housing. If you like housing down there, he offers free heating plans. Look, you don't get any better than that. And neither party, whether the devil or the God, right? Neither political party in the sky and below cares about your politics. They'll take you for good and bad. So just like politics, we've got some of that up there and down here. Do you want a heating plan or do you want a mansion? Go get it, right? Can't believe we just went through a little bit of religious teaching in my channel. That's definitely off course for me, but that's all right. I'm all about that. We call it Vacation Bible School in 5 minutes flat. I would be near getting help now, so I need it even more. I'm elderly and disabled. Well, Sherry, if you feel that you're struggling to navigate the system, you can reach out to my office. You can reach out to HUD, the Housing Authority. Lots of options. They have 211, 311. You've got to find what you believe would be most best for you and has your vested interests in mind. Okay? That's what I would advise. You don't need to do this alone. There are people that can do it much better than you, but you need to make good, informed decisions about the people you deal with. Renee Scales, I'm a senior and I'm trying to figure things out. Okay. There's a lot to figure out. I didn't figure out most of what I was doing until about 10 years in. I didn't get good at it until 15, and I didn't start really destroying housing authorities and doing court cases to probably close to 20 years in. So it takes a while. And Google was of no help. Sherry Thrasher, Section 8 housing should be for us seniors. That's true. Section 8 and housing and Title 24 is constantly evolving. This is not your mom's and your grandmother's era, the 1980s and the 70s. The system doesn't even operate the same way. In fact, it's had about 7 fundamental major changes. In fact, if you received a voucher in 1980 and you've still got it, you should be put in a prison, number one, unless you're senior, disabled, okay, or a veteran. But beyond that, it's not even the same thing anymore. It's evolved 6 to 7 times, and it doesn't even operate anywhere similar to it did in the 80s. Okay? And many of you have acquired a prejudicial concept of Section 8 and what it offers and does based on your beliefs when you're growing up in the 80s and you saw Eyewitness News lie its ass off. Back when the news was racially charged, right? Let's show we'll have 1,000 Section 8 tenants operating in a house perfectly, no problem. But our witness news would target specific categories of people and suggest because of their skin color and the number of children that somehow they were the epitaph of the problems in Section 8 housing. 1% example against the whole system. So people still have this concept and ideology based on bullshit from the 80s that has no relevance in modern times, right? How many of you out there still have ideas about the 80s that you're trying to implement and argue here in 2025, 35 years later, on a system that's not even the same, okay? That's my point. I don't sympathize with prejudicial people. And look, I've had a few call my phone and let's talk, and they thought I'd sympathize with them because I'm white. Well, all they got was a dial tone. I'm not sympathizing with that. I'm here to serve people, not their politics, not their burning crosses, serving the devil, whatever you want to do. I don't do all that, okay? People make human phone calls to me and our company, and we deal with people on that basis. We service seniors, veterans, and disabled. We don't service frauds. I had a fraud about a week ago. I ended up calling most housing authority and ruined that lady. Why did I ruin her? Because she was a complete fraud. She lied about a lot of things, including being a domestic violence victim. It's kind of like stolen valor. She was both a thief and a liar. And so I called both PHAs, and I warned her about that lady. So I wield great power with what I do. Not only can I give people housing vouchers very quickly, I can also destroy your chances of ever owning one ever. That lady failed to see that. I really don't like acting in malice, nor do I want to weaponize my company against any individual. But under that circumstance, the lady was a complete fraud and thought I would just be complicit with her. You ever met somebody that actually believes their own bullshit that comes out their mouth? That was this lady. Well, needless to say, things are ended badly for her. Moving on from there, daughter, lots of laughing emojis. Well, thank you. Candy, I like that name. Are you related to Bob at the pool? If you are, Candy, we're in trouble. New policy is for vouchers to go to Americans first. Yep. Well, that should be common sense, right? But I suppose we have to hang a sign at the pool, America first. You know, it's ironic. You know, it seemed like that would be step number one. Are you legally here? We should start with that. When you read the menu, are you American? Are you legally here, man? But that doesn't often happen. But they've changed policies on that now. If you are illegal, you've got to check the box. If you don't check it, then you get a federal indictment and a pair of handcuffs. Antonello 777, what is racist? Boy, that's a big word there, bub. That's a big one. If you want to know what racists are, I can take you down to some Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, parts of South Carolina, Georgia, Louisiana. Not everybody's racist, but you understand. You know, really what racism is just ignorance. A very nasty old thing. It's an old demon that wanders around hoping to consume people in the way that they think and act. It has no basis in reality. And I certainly won't participate in it. Because that'd be like going, you know what? I would look at my cat here, little mama, and go, you know what, honey? You have black stripes on you. Therefore, I'm going to be racist today. And my orange cat, we don't do orange. So now I'm an orange cat racist. If we're going to sit here and do colors, right? We're going to pull out the coloring book. Then I should base my decisions on the color of my cats. I got a black cat. I got a white cat. I got an orange one. And so I'll give better treatment to the preferred color, right? Is that how it works out? Because that's about as stupid as it sounds. That's what racism is. So Fiber Farmstead, great chat. Love you all for your cats. Well, the cats like it too. It gives us all an opportunity to share. And right now they're all right here. They're tucked in. I think it's because the computer is real warm in this area and the monitors. So I got 1, 2, and 3 back here. Sometimes up to 5. Vulture Waterberg. Racist laughing out. No one takes that word seriously anymore since it's overused. It certainly is. But it's not the only thing in the world that's overused. There's lots of things we overused, right? And there's lots of things we discriminate about. People's weight, color, height, everything. Oh, she's too short. She's too tall. She's too fat. she's the wrong color, right? So that's light. But adults don't normally get that affected by it, because when you grow up, you learn you don't have to sit there and do childish shit, right? Well, guys, I'm gonna wrap this up because I don't feel the conversation is going anywhere anymore. I think we're just kind of shooting the shit at this point. So for those that are here that saw the earlier part of this video about an hour ago, I'm hoping for the transition of housing authorities to private companies. I'm hoping that we continue our efforts to continue to change the system so people can be treated with dignity and respect, and that we dissolve these housing authorities that do not serve a meaningful purpose in our current society. If things change again, then we should reevaluate and then look at it from a new perspective. We cannot continue to run the country or local politics and then only check it once a year. We need to keep adapting. That's what change is good for. That way we don't continue to operate like we did in the 80s or the 90s. So with that being said, guys, I've enjoyed talking to you all guys today. I will see you all Tuesday. And my cats, thank you for joining the channel. Bye for now.